Hey everyone, welcome. How's it going? We just got the closing bell for Thursday, April 18th. And this morning we were talking about how all week we've had this pattern where we open higher and we come lower. And that in order to get really comfortable for a bounce, we wanted to see the opposite. We wanted to see us open lower and trade higher. Well, today, same thing happened. We opened higher. We did come down towards the previous day close, and actually a little bit through it. But then we bounced up and we went higher and then we came back down. And so all day, is this up to date? No, my price action is not updating. That's really weird. Why do I? Oh no, well, that was up to date. Yeah, that was up to date. So we went up and then we came down and then all we did was chop around sideways and we did end up a little bit lower on the day. So it's looking like we're down 0.22%. The good news though is that the low over here is not really that much lower than the previous day low. So the levels that we drew, we lost them, but we drew. I should have saved before I refreshed. But we drew a level from the low yesterday for today, and then we drew another one at the MA90, which was 495.71. It was a little bit lower this morning, but we'll do 495.71 and add that back in 495.71. Again, these are just regions. They don't have to be precise. And we can see that that low from yesterday held very well today. So we did poke ourselves a little bit below it, but really it's just a region. It's just a region. So that held really well. We closed a little bit above that low from yesterday. And so that is a nice bottom, is starting to form a bottom right there. It could come down a little lower to the MA90. It could chop sideways and the MA90 will rise to it, or we could bounce from here. So we could, again, this purple line is a region. I can adjust it a tiny bit and just bounce upwards. For now, that is still the most likely scenario. So today's session really didn't do anything. It seems like we're on a wait and hold, wait and see. Bulls are wanting to come in, but they get washed out by bears. Bears are not able to fully take control and really bring us any lower. So there has to be some sort of stimulus. So there is maybe a general sense of foreboding in the market, but not enough for people to really take action, not enough for them to panic, not enough for them to heavily sell the decisions that they're in. So if that continues, we are going to get a chop sideways. If we don't get the catalyst that we're looking for, then we'll chop sideways. Now, potentially Netflix earnings after the market today could give us some spark, either to the upside or to the downside. That could be the first signal that we're looking for in this earnings season to really send us in one direction or the other. Let's see what time Netflix is reporting their earnings. It just says, well, let's go to the day trade because oftentimes they have it more precise over there. It looks like, why do they have it before? Yeah, so they haven't reported yet, but we're starting to see these big moves. So they might be getting their reporting and their call right now. So we'll check back towards the end of this aftermarket session and see how it's going. But right now it's looking like it's going pretty far down, but for sure volatility is entering into Netflix right now. And that could give us some idea of directionality. Otherwise, there's not much to say. If we could look at the the TLT went sideways today. It's honoring the previous channel that we drew. So we really just broke down below the channel for one day, popped right back into it, and then now we're just following it. So we'll see if that holds. If that holds, that's nice and orderly downward movement. That's gonna excite the stock market too much. If we break back down and start falling again, then that will put downward pressure on the market. If this manages to bounce up towards the EMA 20, towards this horizontal line, then the stock markets will have a relief of pressure and be able to rise with it. Also today, the VIX didn't really go anywhere. You can see that the VIX, the entire day's range is low. The high is lower, the low is lower, the close is lower. So even though we moved lower in the S&P, the VIX has really started to come down off of these highs over here. And as long as that continues and we see this pattern, then our confidence in the bounce that we are anticipating increases. So even though we are a little bit lower than yesterday, and yesterday is lower than the day before, we are still expecting that bounce that we've been talking about. So bounce towards the EMA 8, maybe the MA 50, EMA 20 level, which are really close to each other at this point. And that will give us a little bit of a reprieve before the most likely scenario right now still is that we will continue that downward movement and probably get a 10% correction. Oops, I didn't want to move that line. So one thing that we can do is, from yesterday, nothing has really changed. So I don't want to go through the exact same things and stare at the exact same pictures. What we could do though is look and see if anything happened in our Fed Watch tool. And then we can see where money went in our sectors. So May, that's really interesting. Was this, yeah, this is the first time that we're seeing even though it's extremely low probability, we're seeing a probability of a rate hike in May instead of a rate cut in May, and zero possibility of a rate cut. That's really interesting. That's definitely a change. And then if we look at June, we also have a small, tiny probability now inside a rate hike. And our rate cut is moved up a little bit to 18.9%. We were looking at 16-ish% this morning. So that's just a little bit of optimism in the TLT. Right, so I wouldn't read too much into that, just the fact that we just really chopped sideways over there. So let's take a look at our sectors. I will first look at it from a momentum perspective. And I'm just looking for any real standouts over here. Look at this, 12% in technology, 6% in real estate on that 50-day moving average. So we'll take a look at technology and real estate. And this is pretty low as well, but those are the standout. Oh, 9% in healthcare, tech, real estate, and then we've got a 91% here in energy and a 67% in utilities. So if I look at XLV looks like it might be forming this bottom right here, although with the length of these bars and the flat top bottom, that's actually not necessarily indicating very strong support. It looks like that might try to break a horizontal. It might break to the downside, which would be interesting because XLV is a defensive sector. Let's take a look at XL. Let's see, we had XLU and XLE. XLK. XLK breaking through this channel that we've been trading in. So if we get confirmation tomorrow would be a red bar that is completely below this horizontal line, and that's not going to be great news for the technology sector. But we are already down at 9%, so how low are we going to go? Well, this is telling us that it could go a little bit lower. So we'll just have to wait and see. And the other one was real estate. Just the news with the rates not getting cut as soon as we expected. That's hasn't been great for real estate. You see this just basically straight down from April 9th all the way till today, looking like it kind of went sideways a little bit today along with the overall markets. But we drew this line for a reason. So, because that was the break of this uptrend line, but you can see that that uptrend was broken. It didn't last very long. It was broken pretty quickly. So we are headed towards that previous downtrend line. That's not necessarily something that we normally look at. So I don't want to get too distracted by that. So let's go ahead and just delete those and really just see that this is getting a little bit extreme. We are at our -3 ATR. We've been there for 3, maybe 4 days now. And so we could get a little bit of reprieve. So if we do get that bounce in the markets, this could come up, hit that EMA 8, maybe that MA 200 before resuming downwards. But real estate definitely looks like it's in a downtrend. So over here, where's our real estate? 6% on the 50-day, 35% on the 200-day. So maybe this 200-day is going to continue to move downwards. Let's click on that chart real fast and see if we're in a downward slope. And yes, for sure, we are on a downward slope. So we probably expect that to continue down to this 10 or 20 level. We want to look at utilities and energy. Utility is doing great. So yesterday we talked about how it spanned this entire range from the MA50 all the way to EMA 20 and ended up a little bit below that EMA 8. Now the body of this candle, meaning the open and the close, are both above the EMA 20. The low is below the EMA 20 and the EMA 8, and the high obviously is a little bit higher. So this is, it broke, and technically it broke. All we need is confirmation. If we get a green bar right here upwards, preferably where the low is above the EMA 20 as well, but it, even if it's just a green bar with the high above the previous day high and the close above the previous day close, or even the previous day high, that's going to be a strong signal for XLU, money moving into the utilities. So utilities is definitely something that we want to keep our eye on if we're looking to do some longs, because if we do bounce, then utilities should bounce even more, and we should at least maybe get to these highs or this local horizontal resistance right here. So short-term XLU is looking really good, and even on a medium term, it's looking pretty good as well. Let me just take a look at a weekly chart. Weekly chart, the strength isn't quite there yet, so we would want to wait for that to pop above that MA 200 on the weekly chart. But on the daily chart, so really on the short term, we would look for this to come up to, what's that level here? To this 65, 65.5 level. So we have a little bit of room in XLU, and then XLE, oops. XLE pulling back to the EMA 20 and holding there, at least so far. And that is a okay place for it to bounce. So again, we're looking for this being one of the strongest sectors, or if not the strongest sector during the down move that we've experienced. We would look for this to bounce upwards and give us at least match these highs right here in the 97 region. Okay, so let's take a look at our sector scan. And let's just see where money moved around today. XLU. XLU, XLP, so we're still looking at the safer sectors. Interestingly, XLC, that could be a little bit because of Netflix and financials. Definitely, I noticed several financial stocks. So I'm doing quite well today, so I'm not surprised to see XLF up here. And then others, these are more neutral. Gold did well. So if we look at XLF, XLC, XLC showing a little bit of strength relative to the other charts that we've seen so far, holding at this MA50 right here. And XLF, not as strong as XLC. And then let's look at XLP as well. We didn't look at that. Okay, so up to its EMA 8, I'd be careful here. So if we can break through, it still has to hit the EMA 20, and if it breaks through that, it still has the MA 50. So it's going to get pretty challenged to the upside. Not that it can't move, but it's limited on how much it might move, because for it to just go straight up through the MA 50 is pretty unlikely. So I would actually, this looks more like a short opportunity to me. It's been going down, pulled back to the EMA 8. So the possibility of a short is good right here. It's even stronger at that EMA 20 and even stronger at the MA 50. So this looks like more of a short setup to me than a long setup. So even though it's been doing well relatively to the other sectors in the past couple of days, all it's really doing is pulling back from its downward movement. So I'd be super careful. In XLP yesterday, I think we mentioned, or this morning we talked about PG. PG has earnings coming up. Is that today after market? No, tomorrow before market. So that'll be telling. If PG doesn't have really strong earnings, that could send the entire XLP downwards. So we'd want to look at that. Let's go back and check out Netflix, see how they're doing. And so far down, with big volatility. So that implies the report has already come out and been digested. I don't know what time their call is. Here we go. Yeah, so we've already have our news reactions to it. This was 2 hours ago. We need 14 minutes ago. It looks like it's positive earnings, but not quite enough for us to go positive on the stock. So you can see that initial reaction was kind of hugely volatile, and then was biased towards the upside, but then sellers came in and sold it, and it's recovering a little bit. So good earnings, but not enough to make at least the aftermarket investors happy. So this may drag down on the tech sector, the communication sector. We were talking about XLK. And so XLK, if that breaks down, and XLC, if that breaks down from that MA 50, that would not bode well for the QQQ. QQQ right here at some pretty critical horizontal levels right here, or at least horizontal support right there. And so the next level would be down here at 410. So it's looking a little bit more likely like this just based on Netflix, which may not determine everything, but it is a FANG stock with large cap. So because of the initial reaction to the Netflix earnings, it's just making it a little bit more likely that we're heading towards that pullback, and maybe we won't get a bounce in the S&P. Maybe or we could just drag down. I'm sorry, I said that too early. Looking a little more like we won't bounce from here, from this horizontal line. We still have the possibility of bouncing from the MA90. So if we get a downward movement tomorrow, as long as it's not extreme and huge, then we could still bounce from the MA90. If it is extreme and huge, then we could be headed towards that, straight for that 10% correction, which is why you have hedges in your portfolio, and you never count on the high probability scenario executing. You always have a plan for the other possibilities as well. So, as long as we're hedged, then we're okay. But there's still the possibility of us bouncing and then heading for that 10% correction. Now is definitely a time to have your portfolio well hedged, or to have it pointed towards the downside overall. Okay. I think that is it. Tomorrow we'll see how the Netflix earnings gets digested overnight. And then also tomorrow, let's see, tomorrow before market open, I think was PG, SLB as well. So that'll give us some guidance in the energy sector. Yeah, and those are the major ones. American Express, maybe a little bit in the finance sector. So those are all hot and active sectors today. Finance, energy, and communications. Those are at the top of our sector list. So we definitely want to pay attention to how the SLB and PG earnings come out tomorrow morning. Those will have a larger impact on the SPY than the QQQ. SPY is going to be affected by Netflix and Procter & Gamble and Schlumberger. The QQQ is going to be more affected by Netflix. So in order for us to determine where SPY might go, we do need to wait and see how that financial stock and that energy stock performance. So today is more of like a wait and see day. So we do have those earnings coming out that have the potential to change the path or the probabilities of what we're looking at, just like what I just said with Netflix. Say, oh, okay, that slightly increases the chance that we might come down, straight down, rather than bounce. That changed our odds a little bit. So the Schlumberger and the Procter & Gamble earnings also might change our odds a little bit. So we want to get more information before we calibrate on our probabilities, or we take action on any changed probabilities. If the probabilities aren't significantly changed, then we wouldn't make a change to our plan. Only if the probabilities change quite a bit, that's when we would start adjusting our plan. So for now, it's wait and see what happens tomorrow morning and how the picture develops from any news that we get from those additional earnings. So that is it for this afternoon. I will see you tomorrow morning, I think. I will confirm. I'll let you guys know on the Telegram channel because I need to check my schedule to make sure that I can absolutely be free for the entire time period. Have a wonderful rest of your night, and most likely I will see you tomorrow morning.